What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building.
I'm joined today with Francis Tesch. How you doing today, Fran?
I'm good, thank you. Glad to hear you're good too.
Excellent. Well, of course, I'm good because I don't know if you know this, but my very favorite audience member is joining us today. And why is my favorite audience member here today? Is because this is
Hmm.
a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators. That means investors, issuers, operators, construction people, all that kind of stuff. Now, why would I do such a silly thing? Well, if you know about private off market, also known as 506B deals, then you know that you're not allowed to publicly solicit people. You have to have a documented prior substantive relationship, or else the SEC will get ants in its pants. So you're not allowed to be enticing investors. You need to know that what they're up to, and that's why we're here. But before we get too into Francis's business, Francis, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself to introduce yourself to the audience?
Now I'm just a new person in real estate. I started really serious in on March 6th, but I've been interested in this for a while, and I think it's a great area to be in and to grow in.
I love it. I love it. And that brings us to the five distinct motivations. Before I get too far in that, though, I need to say, but wait, check your eight. Francis, I don't know if you can see through the camera, and then down there, it's over at your five, but or it's your eight. But maybe there's this big ugly subscribe button in the user's
Oh,
device, but and they should probably do. No, it's a stupid joke, and I always do it. But
oh, okay.
anyway, the five distinct motivations. So I've talked to a whole whack of, you know what? I'm going to move this right up here instead. There we go. I meet a whole whack of investors, syndicators, and all that kind of stuff. And everybody has their own unique why. But when I really got down to brass tacks, I found they fit pretty nicely into these five categories. And because commercial real estate, it's a lot of work, it takes months to make a single acquisition. It's really important to know what's keeping somebody going, what's stopping them from quitting. And that's why I always ask these five different distinct motivators. The first one is preservation of purchasing power. What's that all about? Well, some people who are further along in their investment process, like building their portfolio, they make ends meet from the ownership of these assets. And the only reason why somebody in that situation is going to make a new acquisition, it's either when inflation is eating away at the purchasing power of that cash flow, or if they can buy at a steep discount, like when the property is under distress, or there's some sort of asset crash or something like that. That's not what I'm up to. I'm not that far in my financial journey, but I am far enough to want to trade my time directly for wealth. What's that all about? I've got a background in technology, specifically it's the CRM industry. I opened up my agency for CRM funnel building back in 2011, and I've been doing real estate since 2014, and that's how I got into it. But while my old boss was flipping 10 houses a month, in other words, doing 10 transactions a month, maybe you'd be buying five and selling five or something like that, but there'd be 10 reliably per month for years before he ever hired me. And I was going, wait a second, why is half of my income going to taxes when I can pivot and make sure that I'm getting rewarded for my effort in the form of deployed capital, aka equity? So that's why I'm doing all of this sort of stuff. But many people, especially youngsters, they get excited about commercial real estate because there's lots of dollars in commercial acquisitions. And so the thing that they're up to is they're going, oh, well, I want to really take control of my schedule. Maybe that means they want to fast track retirement and retire early. And maybe it just means they want to work fewer months per year or fewer weeks per month or whatever. whatever, but that's really what they're up to. And that's in stark contrast to the next group. It's more ambition, generational wealth, things like that that inspire them. So they want to buy their entire hometown. They want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's why they'll hustle into their 90s, making them great people to be on your team. But the last group, the fifth one, they'll also hustle into their 90s, but their inspiration's a little bit different. It's not so much about their own generational wealth. It's they've picked maybe a sector of society, or maybe it's animals, or maybe it's the environment. Maybe they want to send people to Mars. But regardless what it is, if you want to make a really big impact on the world, there's a financial component to it. And that's why these people are making their acquisitions. So Francis, of those 5 different motivations, were there any that really jumped out to you? Any combination of them that describe you best?
Um, a hun- 100% help people who need it.
I love it.
So, on the way to that, my family will benefit. On the way to that, a lot of good things. But in the long run, I feel that we are all here for something. And uh, having money is a responsibility. And I know where I want to put my responsibility. So I think that if I have a lot of money, people will pay attention to me. Very often you go to a 401, I'm sorry, a what is it, 503B or whatever,
Right.
and you help them, and you see all kinds of mismanagement, poor way of doing things, and I don't like putting my time in or money when it's not 100%. So
Mhm.
that's my motivation.
I love
And by the way,
it. Mhm.
I'm interested in helping people that can't afford getting a very easy surgery, which is take care of that film they get over their
Yeah,
eyes. Is that
cataracts.
cataracts?
Right.
And giving them their sight back, then they've got their mobility back, etc. Yeah,
Right.
that's what I want to do.
I love that. That's it's a fantastic cause, and I love to hear that answer. But my next question has to do with risk assessment. I know that I talked about Francis about this yesterday, and usually I like to prep people because sometimes it's hard to think of an answer when you're working on your feet. But
Mhm.
these acquisitions, they take months. There are risks involved. Sure, there's opportunity for lots of people, but I need to make sure that people understand what's an illiquid asset, what makes something a good investment, what makes something a not so good investment. And the way that I do it is with this fill in the blank question. So, Francis, if you would, there are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. What's too risky for you?
Um, Too risky because I don't know about it would be crypto.
Hmm.
Um, Too risky for me would be to jump into uh, any kind of an investment without knowing everything, knowing the players. That's too risky.
I love it. I love it. And the problem that everybody says about crypto is you can't eat it, unlike a
Yeah.
sandwich. This thing kills me every single time. But it's a great little segue into the section where I go through. This is my favorite part. It's the 6 sides of the dandoesdeals.com core competency cube. You can get your own copy for free at dandoesdeals.com. And like a complete dummy, I don't even ask for your email address. And I say that's a dummy move because as far as marketing goes, you always have to ask for some sort of contact information in return for your freebie. But my main thing is I want to make sure that you learn how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals. And that means you have to know the 6 sides of this die, these 6 different core roles, these competencies that go into it. And in every episode of Chance Encounters, I go through all 6 sides so that way you're clear on what each one is. And more importantly, you know how my guest fits into these deals. So let's get started. First one is the repositioner. The repositioner is an acquisitions person. So they're looking at a ton of properties all the time and they're doing a bunch of paperwork. What's that paperwork, you may ask? Probably not. Anyway, they're underwriting. It's a magic word. It's a fancy word. It means they're doing the math. They're figuring out, first of all, is this property even actually making the amount of money that the seller slash broker is claiming it is? Because pretty often it's not. And the repositioner has to be able to sift through all those numbers and figure out if that purchase actually makes sense. And one of the more confusing or counterintuitive bits of a repositioner's job is they always have investor relations. In other words, they're working with financiers. There are different types of lenders, people who only deal with paper and money, full stop. So they're not allowed to be on the GP team. They're strictly passive. Those are the financiers here. But the reason why repositioners have to have such great relations with lenders is because this basically you're gonna, if you get a more advantageous loan, it goes straight to the profitability of the business. That's the simplest way to explain it. So cheaper money means a more profitable business, so they have to be meeting lenders all the time. But the more traditional place that a repositioner is going to find more upside, that's what they're doing. That's why they're doing the underwriting. They're figuring how can they make this property make more money than it is right now. The most obvious place to look is to make more efficient operations, cut expenses, stop those Benjamins from going down the toilet. But of course, there's a lot more to operations than just unclogging toilets and collecting rent and mowing lawns. Me personally, because of my marketing and digital background, it's one of the things that'll come up on these bigger properties. I focus on 100 unit and more personally because I'm from the internet. But one of the things that can come up is even if you're outsourcing your operations to a third party, they might not be able to fill all the units, which is because their marketing chops aren't up to snuff. So between the automation and the marketing and then just being a handy person in general, that's what I tend to contribute to these GP teams. But often that's not enough upside for the repositioner to find, so they're going to get a contractor team involved to do renovations or value add, as they often call it. And the idea being that the future resident, after the unit has been improved, would be happy to pay more in rent than the previous one because it's a nicer place. So that's why you have the contractors in. But of course, you can spend endless amounts of money on contractors. So you have to be very careful that you ROI. And that means you have to keep track of these contractors, make sure they're not gold plating toilets on you, because that's never going to make any money. But the bigger thing, especially if you have the same problem that I do, which as I mentioned, and I don't know if you realize this about me, but I'm from the internet. And that means I need locals. I need boots on the ground. I need somebody who can be there in an hour or so, because I can tell you that's not going to be me. In an hour or so, I'd still be stuck at an airport. So that's not going to work. So you need some boots in the ground, somebody who can be there in a hurry to make sure that the operators aren't, cutting corners, make sure that the contractors are keeping the schedule and they're not using substandard parts and all that kind of stuff and materials. And so when the repositioner has assembled that entire team, they turn around to the financiers and they say, hey, I found this great property. It's worth tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have, say, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars you lend us, do you? And there's going to be one thing that might throw a wrench into your plans on this if this is your idea. See, some people, maybe they're physicians or engineers or something like that, they decide, hey, let's pool our resources between me and my friends and family, all that kind of stuff, and take over a property. Well, that plan falls apart when you find out the financiers are asking, who's your sponsor? Who's your KP? What's that all about? You will not be eligible for a commercial loan unless somebody in the fold already owns a similar asset. So if you want to buy a 350 unit apartment complex, somebody in the fold has to already own a 350 unit apartment complex, or else the lenders are going to say no. So that's the role of this one. And I like to emphasize that because a lot of gurus, they kind of gloss over that point because they're kind of hoping to be your sponsor. In 506B says you're not even allowed to talk to new people. So it's a little bit of a scam, if you will. But once the repositioner has assembled all this team, got the property, got the lending, all that kind of stuff, they've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Fran, I know that you're already invested as an LP. You're starting off, you're a little bit new to things. I'm not sure if down the road you're looking to get onto any GP teams, but how would you describe using these different sides as far as what you're most likely to contribute to your next deal?
So I came into this knowing that I want to be an asset manager.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that kind of a person. I've been in charge of many people, and I take ownership of, this is the goal,
Hmm.
and I make sure that we stay on track. And I stay on track. I'm not trying to be a micromanager, but the bottom line is if I'm in charge, I need to know what's going on. I can't assume or trust. I mean, it'll be like looking at reports, dropping in. My buy box is local,
Hmm.
so I can drop in, or within Texas or maybe even Oklahoma,
Hmm.
because then I can go there
Hmm.
and maybe it's easy. But
Hmm.
anyways, that's one thing. But I also realized that without money, you can't do anything. And that isn't something that I choose to do, but I think I have to do.
Yep, yep. That's there's a lot of truth to that, and that's something that I think a lot of coaches and gurus gloss over is the capital raising. The network part is key to anybody's success if they're going to be doing that. But you mentioned the buy box. That's actually the next segment there. So just so you know, when commercial investors are talking about a buy box or an ideal property, we're asking about three main things. First one's going to be geography. Which states, which counties, possibly even which neighborhood. To call it ideal, that's definitely going to come into play. Second one's going to be size. Most of my guests on Chance Encounters are in multifamily, so that's apartment complexes, and unit
Mhm.
count is how you generally define the size because you're going to have a completely different group taking over 5 and 15 unit apartment complexes compared to the 350 unit apartment complexes. So that part is absolutely pivotal. The third one is called class, and I got this little bit of a pet peeve, which is that they use class for two different things. So I parse it out into two other words. So the first one is condition. So condition has to do with how beat up is it, how old is the build, how many amenities and luxuries and all that kind of stuff are in it. In other words, how nice of a place is it to live in, and how much money would have to be sunk into it for it to be much better. So that's the condition. Now, area, on the other hand, they're talking about what's the crime rate like where the property is located? What are the school districts like where the property is located? And again, it's desirability, and that is pretty easy to figure out just by the number of cars and foot traffic that goes by that building in a given day. But both the area and the condition, when you're talking about class, they're rated with the same system as in grade school, where A plus is at the top, and then A, and then A minus, and then B plus, and so on. So, Fran, as far as you go, do you want to expand? You mentioned that Oklahoma, Texas, as far as the geography goes, as far as unit count and class, do you have preferences on those?
So the LP I'm in is a 63 unit.
Mhm.
It sounds small, but I I think that's very manageable. Um, I We were very seriously looking at a 296 unit over in Grand Prairie. I really like the property, but that just seems so big. How do you keep control? How do you know that somebody isn't doing the wrong thing, or you've got some vagrant, living in a vacant, whatever.
Mhm.
But um, I think, I've heard that if you buy 100 units, um, it's going to be as much work as smaller than 100.
Mhm.
So maybe 100 is the buy box. Um, I think that you just need to kind of look at everything. Today, I underwrote and presented to a group 288 units
Mhm.
in Arlington, Texas, and the 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 money that we have to bring in is just a lot, and I think that it's really difficult to raise millions and millions of dollars. And we're talking like maybe 11 or 12, and then you have to get money for your capex. So, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
maybe one day I'll look back and I'll go, that's nothing.
Right.
But when you're starting out and you're not used to dealing in millions of dollars, now I'm getting used to it.
Mhm.
Um, it's, I just, I've always been a person that starts at the bottom and works my way up. And I've always become the expert, the go-to person, but I feel like I need to work my way up to know all the little details.
I love it. I love it. And so that brings us to our next section, which is about the people who you're eager to meet up with. And each of us, we have our own unique skill sets, but because of that, we're better off helping some people than others. Me personally,
Mhm.
traditionally, it's been the locals and the sponsor KPs that I've looked to build better relationships with, mostly because I'm from the internet and also
Mhm.
because of my experience. I need somebody who has some foundation for before I really can make a disproportionate difference for them. It sounds like you probably need to meet as many sponsors and possibly repositioners as you possibly can, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Who are you most eager to talk to? Who's best to reach out to you, Francis?
Well, I think I need to find different KPs,
Mhm.
build some relationships, because when I do hit on uh, an asset that seems like a good investment, then who's going to back me up
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
and build a team with? Um, and then the other thing is capital raisers
Mhm. Mhm.
that I'm going to go to. My avatar is going to be me.
Mhm.
So I'm going to be working with people that have been in W2. And see, I haven't really established myself well in that way
Mhm.
because I don't have a website yet.
Mhm.
And that kind of holds me back.
Right.
So I know that I need to talk to somebody and they'll go, oh, I like her. She seems to be whatever. And then they look for me and there's no presence
Mhm.
on the internet.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
not going to come to me because they saw me on the internet, but that would validate me.
Right.
So anyway, um, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's pretty clear. And the next question is how to reach out. Me, I'm easy to find because I'm lucky enough to have this super distinct last name. But LinkedIn is the platform that I'm most active on, so that's where you should connect. But if you do scan this code with your phone, that brings you to the FAQs page of 506 BME, which is the platform where I help people document their substantive relations so that
Ah,
when they get audited, the SEC says, hey, let's see your documentation of all your investor relations. You can use 506 BME's printouts to go, it's like, look, this is when I connected with them. This is the proof that I knew their level of sophistication, appetite for risk, and core competencies that they're planning on contributing. And so those are the best ways to reach me. Fran, is there a social media platform, phone number, email, something like that that's best for people to reach out with?
I think LinkedIn is mine.
Okay, excellent, excellent. You got that distinct last name as well, so I don't imagine there are too
Yeah.
many Francis Tesches out there.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So the last thing is actually not for you, Francis. It's for you in the audience. It's a public service announcement. If you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs and like migraine-like symptoms, I'm confident it's the downright hideous subscribe button that's right down there, and you can just get rid of it by clicking on it. It doesn't cost you anything. And of course, I'm biased because I want people to click on it because if enough people do, then YouTube will start paying for these videos instead of me. I think that would be really amazing. But as far as you're concerned, what it means is these videos might start showing up on your list of suggestions. But as far as I'm concerned, you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions. I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Francis, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been great.
I'm glad that I came.
Awesome. Thanks. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me. Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay, are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.